Okay, well, while we are waiting for her to connect, let's go ahead and get started here. So, welcome everyone to the third installment of the International Student Webinar Series, where we will be talking about visas and deferrals. I am your host today. My name is Chris Cameron. My co-host, whenever she gets here, will be Nancy Hyde. And yeah, I know it's late where many of you are, so we'll try and get through this as quickly as we can. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Just a couple of introductions. I hope all of you can see me, or not me, but the presentation. Oh, hold on just one second. Looks like Amanda has an update for me. Give me just one moment, sorry. There is. Okay, does that work? Hello, can you hear me?
Nancy.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Great. Nancy's here, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, let's go ahead and actually get started. So we're back where we were. All right, so we are your presenters today. My name is Chris Cameron. I am the Global Engagement Coordinator in the Office of Global Engagement at USU. You may be surprised, but that is what I actually look like. I'm kidding, of course. But I just don't have a recent picture of myself. But I am in charge of processing all of the international graduate student I-20s, as well as I help oversee the J1 Scholar Program. So that's a little bit about me. I'll turn it over to Nancy so she can say a little bit about herself.
I'm an international admissions officer at Utah State University, and I am also a designated school official, or DSO. And so that we're going to be talking about that, a DSO is someone who's authorized to issue the Form I-20 to students.
Okay.
Hey.
Let's go ahead and move on. So the first slide we have here is what is a visa, and Nancy's going to tell us a little bit about what a visa is.
Okay, well, a visa is a document issued by a U.S. enter the U.S. a certain status. So if you will be a student enrolling in a degree program at a college or university, an I-20 form will be issued to you by a DSO. That form, when you or embassy in your country. The DS 2019 form is used by those who will participate in an exchange visitor program, and they will be applying for a J visa. So here is a very helpful website for a lot of issues about coming to the U.S. on an F or J visa.
Awesome. And before I forget, just so you all know, there is a Q&A section on the right side of the event where you can enter any questions you have, and we will address those later in the presentation. So don't hesitate to put any kind of questions you have in there. We will address them later on. Okay. Moving on is, so we just talked about what a visa is. So I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, how do I apply for this crazy thing? Well, so if you have a Form I-20, which many of you do, you will have to you'll have to complete the Form I-901 and pay the SEVIS I-901 fee. And information about that can be found at fmjfee.com. Pretty much everything you need to know is there. It's an electronic payment. If you can't pay electronically, they also have information about how you can pay it through mail. If you have a DS 2019, which I know at least a couple of you do, you will have to complete the Form DS 160. So it's a little bit different. And the instructions are found. I have a little link there with the instructions. I'll be sending out this PowerPoint at the end of the presentation. So don't worry, think you have to write out this crazy URL. You don't. I will be sending out the presentation, so you guys can just click it and be on your merry way. So once you've completed those two processes, you'll have to schedule an appointment at your local embassy or consulate office. And if you want to know like what the wait times for that are, you can find it there at that link. I'm not actually going to be traveling to it just for the sake of brevity, so we can get you guys on your way. But there's a lot of useful information on that website. All right. So moving on. So that was how you apply for it. So now we're going to talk about some helpful tips for the actual interview itself. And these were provided by NAFSA. Many of you have already received these tips as part of your I-20 packet. And so, yeah, we're just going to talk about them a little bit. Nancy, do you want to get us started?
Sure. So the first one, you'll be having a short interview with a consular officer. One of the things that they will ask you is if you are planning to stay in the U.S. or if you will return to your home country or your residence abroad, which usually means your home country. If you give any kind of indication that you plan to stay in the U.S., there's a good chance that your student visa or your J visa will be denied. So you will need to show what's called ties to your home country. These are things that connect you to your hometown and your homeland or current place of residence, such as that you may have a job when you return. You have family there. You may own a house or rent an apartment. If you are a prospective student, the interviewing officer may ask you some specific plans or promise of future employment, educational goals, long-range plans, and career prospects in your home country. So you will want to be prepared to discuss these ties to your home country in order to receive an F or a J visa. Chris?
All right. The next one is pretty self-explanatory. The interview will usually be conducted in English instead of your native language. So it's a good idea to practice speaking English with a native speaker or someone else who speaks it fluently, because it's not a speech. It's an interactive conversation with a consular office, and they'll be asking you specific questions. So just be prepared to answer those in English. Okay, Nancy?
Okay. The next one is speak for yourself, what that means is you will need to be the person who is answering the questions that the consular officer is asking. So you will create an impression if you are speaking for yourself rather than having someone else. And a lot of times you may be the only one at the visa interview unless you may have a minor who's with you. Okay, Chris?
Awesome. So the next one is know your program and how it fits your career goals. So this one is a little trickier to explain. It's more about like explaining to the visa officer why it's necessary for you to study in the United States. Specifically, what is your program going to give you that's going to fit your career goals back in your home country? So this ties back into the first one in that you're going to be expected to explain how studying in the United States, getting this degree here, is going to help you in your career goals in your home country. Okay, Nancy?
Oh. All right. There's a large number of applications that the consular officers are going to be handling. So they will have a very short time period to conduct a quick interview with you. So your first impression will be very important. So the first minute of that interview will be your first impression. So you'll want to be precise in your responses to the questions and give them short answers, but enough information that you answer the question. Just briefly, if you are denied a visa, you'll want to ask the officer for a list of documents that they would suggest you bring to overcome the denial decision. And then there's more information you can get on the U.S. Department of State's webpage that explains visa denials. Chris?
The next one is supporting documentation. So this one is you're going to be expected to essentially have all of your ducks in a row, so to speak. Everything, like they'll expect you to have any kind of documentation that supports your case with you and organized. They don't want it long because oftentimes the interview will only last about 2 to 3 minutes if you're lucky. So they want brief things that they can just scan real quick to make sure it supports your case. So what does that look like specifically? It looks like financial documentation, scholarship letters. If you're a graduate student with an assistantship, they're looking for your assistantship letter that you received from the departments. You'll want to have your admission letter. They'll be looking for anything else that may be of use to your case. Like if you're a research assistant, they may ask for a letter from your department, specific, like stating what you're working on, what you'll be researching, and those kinds of things. Basically, if it's on your I-20, expect to have documentation supporting that. Okay, Nancy.
All right. The next one is very important for countries, so you should review your country's specific requirements on the U.S. consulate's website for your country. They may be looking for something like countries that are suffering economic problems or where students may have remained in the U.S. too long. That could be an issue. But several of the U.S. consulates around the world, they've created YouTube videos that explain their visa process and their specific information. So you'll want to check that out. See if your embassy or consulate has a YouTube video that would be helpful to you. Chris?
Yeah, so the next one is employment. I'm sure many of you are planning on participating in what's called OPT or STEM OPT after your program is completed, but this isn't what the consular or embassy officer is looking for. Your main purpose when coming into the country is to study, and that's what they're looking for. So this also goes back to the first one and the fourth one that we talked about, which is even though employment is possible, they're still looking for specific reasons why you plan to return to your home country to seek employment there, not in the United States. Also, if you are on an F visa and you have an F2 dependent, please be aware that F2s cannot accept employment in the United States for any reason. J2s are a little different. But for the most part, that is what they're looking for, is that you're here to study, not to seek employment specifically. Okay, Nancy?
Okay. If you are married and your spouse and children will remain behind in your country, you will need to be prepared to explain how they will support themselves while you are in the United States. If the consular officer gets the impression that you will support your family with the money you earn during your studies in the United States, your student visa application will probably be denied. Chris?
And for the last one, we'll just kind of blaze through these. So the first one is the social media question. A lot of people are confused about this one. So what they're looking for specifically is that you include any social media that you've used in the previous 5 years before your application, and any handles, usernames, whatever that you go by on all of those platforms, so that they can look into those. This next one is administrative processing delays. Some of our students undergo these. Usually what it comes down to is your name is similar to someone else's, and they have to look into your background or your status. So don't worry if you get hit with administrative processing, but sometimes these delays can take a while. The next one is your past visits to the United States. So be expected to talk about yours or any of your family's previous visa statuses in the United States. If you were here previously and had accepted OPT or STEM OPT, they'll be looking for why you're looking for additional study in the United States, and those kinds of things. If you were here previously and had been terminated for any reason, they'll be looking for some kind of supporting documentation explaining why and how you're going to get, or how that you're going to do, I guess, better this time. And for those ones, you may want to consult a lawyer if necessary. If you're a third country national, that means you are a permanent resident of a different country or a citizen of a different country than your home country, they may be looking for reasons that you plan to return to that country instead of your home country. And the last one, arrests or convictions. They, if you have been arrested or convicted of anything, they will be looking for documentation that shows that. Okay, and that should be it for that one. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put it in the Q&A section, and we will move on to the next slide, which is the one that everyone, I'm sure, is here for, which is, how am I going to get my visa when all the embassies are closed? So COVID-19 has been affecting everyone around the world for a while now, and many of the embassies and consulate offices around the world are still closed. Just to give you kind of a snapshot, I have a picture on the right side there. This is from June 3rd, which is the last update that I've seen. This is by no means all of the consulate offices, but this is a good picture of what it looks like, which is unfortunately not great. So as I've said, many of them are still closed with no schedule for reopening. The few that have reopened have accrued a fairly large backlog. And if you're not able to receive your visa in time for fall 2020, you do have a couple of options. The first of which is you can defer your admission to either spring or fall 2021, or perhaps later if that is what ends up working better for you. The second option is that you can change your enrollment type to online. I want to state this is not your degree type, it is your enrollment type. If you change your degree type, we may not be able to matriculate you into the program. It also, if you do change to online, please know that you will be unable to enter the country midway through the semester if you do obtain your visa. You will have to finish out the semester and then come in a later semester. Okay. On to the next slide. Nancy, I'll let you take over for this one.
Okay, we're going to discuss a little bit what the difference is between a deferral and a leave of absence. So a deferral is a situation where you may have some kind of a circumstance like COVID that will prevent you from starting your studies as a student in the semester that you were admitted for. So you can then request a deferral of your admission. This allows you to begin at USU in a later semester without having to reapply and pay that application fee again. Usually the amount of time that you can defer is up to 1.5 years. So 3 semesters, not including summer semesters. A leave of absence may be given to a student who has attended USU for at least 1 semester, but then needs to be away from USU for reasons such as mandatory military service or medical leave. Okay, next slide.
Okay. So we just talked about deferrals. So I'm sure many of you are now wondering, well, how do I defer my admission if I need to? So first, we'll leave it to Nancy, as she's our undergraduate specialist. Okay. So for undergraduate students, you will contact your admissions officer, who is also a DSO. The email address is here on the screen. So if you will just email us, we will send you an email link that you will fill out a simple form that tells us approximately when you would like to return to USU or defer your semester to USU. And then we will contact you approximately 4 to 5 months before the new semester that you requested and give you instructions about how to receive a new I-20 for that semester. Okay, Chris, and for graduate students, it's going to be a little bit different. So for graduate students, you're going to want to work with the graduate program coordinator in your department to have your admission deferred to a later semester. After that, they may do it. Sometimes you have to do it. It's just a good idea either way to contact either Aaron Walter or Chelsea Adams, who are the admissions officers in the School of Graduate Studies. And make sure to contact me as well and let me know of your deferral so that we can get you deferred in the appropriate places. It's also worthy to note that if you are deferring to fall 2021, you may be required to show new financial documentation before your new I-20 can be printed. Okay, and that takes us to the question section. So I'm actually going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here for a few minutes so that we can see these questions. Okay, Nancy, do you want to read out some of these questions?
I can't see the question, sorry.
Oh, well, never mind. So first question we have is, what about international students who got an offer of scholarship but are not able to obtain the visa this summer? So as we just said, you'll likely have to defer your enrollment. You'll have to work with your departments or whoever it is that provided the scholarship to see if they are still able to fund you in that later semester.
For undergraduates, they just need to email us at the USU.
You lagged out a little bit there, Nancy. I'll just go ahead and repeat it. So yeah, for undergraduates, you're just going to want to go ahead and email usuintl@usu.edu. Okay, next question we have is, on the I-20 and SEVIS info package, it states that possessing the I-20 is sufficient for Canadian international students. Is this correct, or do I still need to apply for a student visa? So Canada actually works a little bit differently because of certain agreements that the United States has with Canada. I imagine that it's going to be the case that once the borders reopen, you will be able to obtain a visa the way Canadians always have, which is it'll be conducted at the border. And you should be able to obtain your visa that way. Okay, next question. What are the risks and problems of getting another I-20 from a university and getting an I-20 from the first one and declining the first one? So that one actually doesn't matter. So it's the I-20 that you apply for the visa for, that's the one that you're going to want to have, and that's the university you're going to want to show up to and register for. The other I-20 will, if you don't show up to that university, it'll just be auto-terminated. So that's not a problem as long as you bring the right I-20 with the right visa. Right, Nancy? Okay, and the next question we have is, if I defer, will it affect my scholarship? That one depends on the department. I can't really answer that one for you. That would be better to follow up with the department or the person offering the scholarship. Okay. The next one is, why do you need financial support for a deferral? Is there any risk of losing the support? So the reason you may be required to have new financial information is because it is our policy that we cannot accept funding that is older than a year from the start of your program. So if you're deferring to fall 2021, your start date is now going to be August sometime in 2021, which means that your current funding will then be outdated. So that's why we need to see new funding. Is there any risk of losing the supports? Again, that depends on the department. I don't have the answer to that one. Okay, next one. The next one is pretty much the same as the previous question, so I'm actually going to head and skip over that one. The next one is, should I register and get my I-20 for fall semester before requesting a deferral to spring 2020 or not? So actually, I'll let Nancy take this one.
Yeah, that's a little tricky just because of the COVID, but you are welcome to register for classes. We are still sending I-20s to students in the event that they are able to get an I-20. We don't need to know that you wish to defer until right around the first day of classes, or if you know before then, that's helpful. But if you aren't sure, you can wait until sometime in August and then let us know that you will need to defer.
Awesome. Okay, next question is, if I deferred my admission to spring, will my CVIS ID change on the new I-20? No, it will not. Your CVIS ID remains the same. So that is the benefit of this, is that you can still apply for your visa with your old I-20. You'll just need to have your new one before you go to your appointment. Okay, next question is, what is the deadline for deferring? As Nancy said, we don't need to know that you're deferring until right around the first week of classes. Technically, you have until, I believe it's 30 days after classes starts before your record will be auto-terminated, so make sure you let us know before that happens. The next question is, I am on a J1 visa and have paid the I-901 fee. Will I need to change to a DS-160 prior to leaving? I actually don't know the answer to that question. That's a tricky one. I know you will have to fill out the DS-160 in order to apply for the J1 visa. I don't know what happens if you have already paid the CVIS I-901 fee. I will actually look into that one. I see your name, I know who you are, so I will get in touch with you later on and answer that question for you. Okay, next one. Next one we've already addressed. It's about the deadline for deferrals. Next question, do I have to defer the assistantship offers separately, or will it be automatically processed? Again, so I am actually the last person involved with the deferral. You're going to be working with your department first, and so they should defer your assistantship like before anything else really happens. So again, that would be a good question to ask your GPC, because I don't control your assistantships. Okay. Next question is, so I came to America previously as an undergraduate student and studied at a different university. Do I have to renew my visa or go to the embassy for announcing my transferred? I already received my new I-20 from USU. No, so if you're a transfer student, you're actually, that's a little bit different. So transfer students are already in the country and you have a slightly different process. You're not going to be going through the visa embassy process in the same way because you're already here. And yeah, that's basically, there's more to it, more to that, but we will be addressing those kinds of questions in a later webinar in early July. Okay, next one. Do international students need to quarantine after arriving in the United States? So currently, USU has stated that they may ask all international travelers to quarantine for a period of 14 days after arrival. So it is worth noting that if you think you're going to be able to get into the country, to plan at least 14 days, or to plan to get here at least 14 days before you actually have to do anything. In case you are asked to self-isolate. Okay. Okay. Let's see, next question. Is there any maximum possible deferral options? Is it limited? I don't think there's a maximum number of times you can defer. Is there, Nancy?
Yeah, for undergraduate, they're limited to 1.5 years. So 3 semesters, not including summer.
Okay. And so I guess for graduate students, that would also be a good question for the departments or the School of Graduate Studies, because I will just mirror what they defer you to. Okay, next question. Let me see if I can find another one here. Can I use the same I-20 for applying for my visa even after the program start date? So as I kind of stated earlier, your CVIS ID won't change, so you can still use your old I-20 to schedule the appointment, but you will need to have your updated I-20 for the appointment. And right now, we're sending those out electronically due to some allowances from SEVP. And the information we have suggests that the visa embassies should be accepting those electronic I-20s. But if you want to be safe, you can also order the shipment of it. And you can always email myself or our undergraduate admissions team, and we can give the instructions for how to do that. If the embassies reopen in August, should we apply for the visa or should we defer our admission? So that's a tricky one. It depends on what the dates are looking like. So if they reopen in August and you can get an appointment in August, it might not hurt to try to apply for it. But the number one thing that we want to convey to all of you is be safe. So if it means you have to rush to try and get here, I would say just defer and be safe, because you don't want to put yourself or anyone else at risk. Sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
Sorry, especially taking into account the 14-day quarantine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yep, we've already answered a lot of these. I have already paid the CVIS I-901 fee. If I defer, should I get a new one? No. So if you've already paid the CVIS I-901 fee, if that's already on your record. So once I defer, deferring is how we make sure that you don't have to pay that again. So you should be fine there. Okay. Okay, so I just have a message from a GPC here that they wish to share. The departments need to know as soon as possible if an international student is deferring. If the students will not be able to come and is receiving an assistantship, the department will need to assign that assistantship to another student. For graduate students, you can also only defer 1 year. So that would be fall 2021 would be the latest you can defer. Do I know when the U.S. borders will be reopened to international travelers? No, actually, I don't. That is up to the Department of State, and not us. I don't have any control over that, unfortunately. Unless Nancy has heard anything, but I certainly haven't.
No, I have not either.
Okay. If my funding has changed, do I need another I-20? Yes, actually you do. So we'll need to update your financial information on your I-20, and I will get that processed and sent to you once I have that information. Okay. And that is actually all of the questions that I can see. Let me just take a look at the chat here. Okay, so so going back to the borders question, so the borders opening are country specific, and you can find information about that on most of the COVID-19 websites, or just by doing a Google search, you can usually find information about your country specific borders. Okay, and one last question, I think. If students need to quarantine for 14 days, is this in addition to the 10 days needed to get a social security number? So the social security number is actually different, and we'll be addressing this in a later webinar as well. The social security number is based on when you are registered. So once you get here, you'll need to visit our office for orientation to get your EAV Again, all of this will be gone over in a later webinar, so don't worry if you don't understand what any of this means. But that's basically what it means. So once you've registered and they can see that in CVIS, that's when they can get a social security number. The quarantine is going to be slightly different. The quarantine is just like you get here and you can't leave your house for 14 days. Okay, I don't see many other questions. Here's another one, sorry. Do you think there is possibility to resume the visa services before the fall semester? I don't know. Again, that is up to the Department of State and the embassies themselves. Okay. Okay, here's another one. Will those students that need to be quarantined need to be at USU for those 14 days or in the US for those 14 days? I don't know, actually. Do you know, Nancy?
That's a good question.
In the US.
Is it in the US? Okay, so it's in the US. Also, in addition, sorry, going back to the quarantine and Social Security issue, you actually may be able to do a mail-in Social Security while you're quarantining. That may be an option as well, but we'd have to look into that for you. Okay. Here's another one. Due to US sanctions against Iran, do you know if Iranian students could register for online courses or not? There's nothing stopping you from registering for online courses as long as your department is okay with it. Again, like what I said in that slide as part of the presentation, don't change your degree type, because if you change your degree type to an online degree, we won't be able to matriculate you and we'll have to cancel your I-20. So if your department is willing to let you change your enrollment type to online for a semester, you can do that. The funding, if you do that, is a little iffy. I don't know specifically if the departments are going to be willing to fund you if you're doing it online for a semester, if you are receiving funding. That would be something to discuss with them. But there's nothing stopping you from, as long as the department is okay with it, from changing your enrollment type to online for a semester. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Does anyone have any further questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. If you do, you can always email us your specific questions and we can answer them for you. If you're an undergraduate, you can email usuintl@usu.edu to get in touch with our wonderful undergraduate admissions team. And if you're a graduate student, you can email me directly at chris.cameron@usu.edu. And yeah, we can answer your questions that way. Also, if you had to leave the presentation for any reason, don't worry. This will be posted to YouTube and to our ISSS portal where many of you filled out your application for your I-20. So you can always go back and find the specific information you're looking for there. Oh, actually, here's another couple of questions. What if I join fall 2020 online and after the first semester my visa doesn't get approved? You might have to defer again, unfortunately. Again, your ability to get here is dependent on you getting that visa. So if you don't get the visa, then we will most likely have to defer you a second time. Right, Nancy?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, and when do I have to decide the deferral? Again, we don't need to know necessarily that you're deferring until 30 days after the start of classes, when your I-20 will be automatically terminated. So make sure you let us know before that. But there's no rush for you to decide right now. We just need to know in the future. But the departments need to know sooner rather than later. Okay. there aren't any more questions, we can go ahead and call this good. Again, thank you all for attending today. I know it's late for a lot of you, so we'll go ahead and end things here. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email us. And more than anything else, please stay safe out there. It's kind of crazy. And we hope to see you in, if not the near future, sometime in the relative future when it is safe for you to get here. Okay. And
Thanks for joining today.
Yep. Thank you all. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.